In this tutorial, we're going to talk plugins. So we're currently signed into the dashboard area of our Showit website, and we're going to head over to plugins, which you can see halfway down here on the left. And that's going to show us what plugins are installed. So before we dive in, let's just quickly talk about what they actually are. So plugins are little bits of software. They can be added to the WordPress part of your website, and they extend the functionality. So whether it's something like connecting up your Facebook pixel, or connecting a mailing list software, or giving you extra SEO functionality, essentially they run in the background seamlessly and they shouldn't cause any issues. Where I see situations where there are causing issues are when people have loads and loads of plugins installed that aren't being used, that aren't doing anything. And the more little bits of software that you've got installed in the server, the more stuff there is to be loaded when your site loads up. So I would strongly recommend you do not have any more plugins than necessary. Less is definitely more, and you want to keep it as minimal as possible. Think of your website as a sports car. So it's all about carbon fiber, take out the back seats. It's kind of, you want it to be as fast and light and nimble as possible. So the first thing we're going to do in here is take out the anti-spam filter, because I'm not going to have comments switched on this particular site. And if I don't have comments switched on, there's no point having software running anti-spam. So I can make things a bit more efficient by just going ahead and deleting this and taking it off. Now we can't delete the Showit core plugin. We need that for our site to run. So you definitely don't want to be doing anything with that. What we are going to do is go ahead and install the Yoast plugin. And the Yoast plugin is an SEO plugin. It's awesome. I highly recommend it. And it's available within the WordPress repository. So we don't have to go anywhere and find it. We can just download it. Just all I've done is type in Yoast there. It's come up at the top. We're just going to click install. And then we're going to activate. And this is going to give us some extra functionality for things like SEO titles and meta descriptions. And it's also going to give us a really cool little checklist to make sure that our posts and pages are all optimized as best as possible. So we're going to go ahead and click activate. Now there's a few other plugins that I'm going to have on this site. One is designed to add schema. We're going to cover that in a different tutorial. But I would kind of recommend having a schema plugin. It's only going to work on the WordPress site. And this is the thing with some of these plugins that you add. They're not going to transfer over to Showit. So there are some workarounds for that, and I'll be able to show you what they are in future tutorials. But we really just want to keep this as minimal as possible. What I would suggest as well is if you do add a plugin and then you decide not to use it, remove it whilst you still remember which one you're not using. I deal with so many websites where they know that they're using one of a selection of plugins, but they don't know which one, because maybe they've added them like a year ago, 18 months ago, and trying to kind of work out which one's not the active one can be a little bit awkward sometimes. Now, what I would say as well is that there's some plugins that are not compatible with the Showit platform. Showit has some amazing features like server-side caching and image optimization, so you do not want to add any image optimization plugins, and please do not add any cache plugins, because you'll end up with two bits of software trying to do the same thing and getting in each other's way, and it'll end up just slowing your site down. So avoid those types of things. You can also just check over in Showit. I will include a link to the page where they recommend what plugins to avoid. So I'll pop a link under this video. So the other thing that we're going to add is Schema Pro, which I'm just going to pause the video for a second. So if you buy a premium plugin, and this could be the case if you decide to invest in Schema Pro, or say like the multilingual plugin WPML, you would need to download that as a zip file and then upload it directly to the website. So you can see just down here in the left-hand corner, we've got the zip. Now, please do not unzip it before you upload the plugin. It needs to still be zipped. So you would just click Upload Plugin, choose File. We want to make sure that we choose the zip file here. So we're just going to click on that and then click Open and click Install Now. So that would be the process if you purchase a plugin elsewhere and you have to install it manually, if it's not in the WordPress repository. I'd also be careful when you're adding anything from the WordPress repository as well. You want to make sure that it's compatible with your version of WordPress that you run, also that it's been actively maintained. So for example, if you wanted to see that, and we're not really going to do anything with Schema Pro at the moment, if you wanted to see whether a plugin had been updated recently or whether it was compatible, you can just go wherever it says view details here. And you can see this was last updated 6 days ago, which is pretty good. And there's 5+ million active installations, and it explains here what software it requires. So anything that you're downloading, just double check, because you want to make sure that you're not adding anything that's outdated. So I'm not going to be adding any more plugins at this time. What I would say is don't feel as if you kind of need to add them just for the sake of adding plugins. Anything you add, you want to have a real kind of seriously consider whether it's kind of worth adding that particular plugin. Can you get the functionality any other way? For example, with things like Acuity scheduling for booking appointments, you can just use embedded code. You don't have to have a plugin for that. If there's a kind of way to make something work without having a plugin, then that's definitely going to be better. For example, with the Facebook pixel, you can actually add that at the Showit end, so you don't need a plugin for that. So you might see other people talking about having various plugins for that functionality, but Showit's actually got some stuff built in. So in a future tutorial, we'll be looking at how to add both analytics tracking and Facebook pixel over on the Showit side. But for now, that's everything you need to know about plugins. Less is more. Don't add a cache plugin, no image optimization. I recommend Yoast, and I would recommend having a Schema plugin for the WordPress part of your website. Any questions, feel free to shoot me an email.